Hello everyone and welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars. If you're tuning in today, settle in, because we're unpacking a storm that's been brewing behind velvet curtains and carefully curated smiles, the kind of storm that fans sensed but few dared to name aloud. You saw the title. You know why you're here. Tonight, we're laying out the whispers, the clues, and the carefully hidden strings surrounding Gökberk Demirci and Özge Yagaz. A couple whose story has been as magnetic as it has been mysterious. If you're new to the family here at Whispers of Turkish Stars, make sure to subscribe and tap that bell, because what we're about to trace through the shadows is everything a gossip lover lives for: chemistry that jumps from the screen, a bond that lit up millions of hearts, and a silence so heavy it made the rumor mill spin twice as fast. Let's start at the beginning, where it all felt simple. Their paths crossed on set, where long workdays blurred into long looks and the make-believe romance in front of the camera seemed to echo after the director called cut. Anyone who watched them act together will tell you that the connection was undeniable: the tiny glances, the mindful gestures, the ease with which they found each other in a room. Fans were sure it couldn't all be acting, and bit by bit, the off-screen story took shape. Photos at cozy hours, brief sightings far from the buzz, and then the kind of tender words in interviews that said plenty while revealing almost nothing. For a time, it felt like the fairy tale we all root for: two ambitious stars, a partnership built on shared scenes and shared dreams, and a future that looked like it was drawing near with every step they took together. But the brightest lights cast the sharpest shadows, and that's where our story shifts. The murmurings began softly at first. One or two comments that seemed too pointed to be random, a few coincidences that looked less like chance and more like choreography. Some said cracks began to appear when schedules got heavier and outside voices grew louder. Others say an even more delicate thread was tugged, one that would challenge trust at its core. The whispers suggested a betrayal, not the kind that makes headlines in one explosive night, but the kind that creeps in gradually, cloaked in secrecy, whispered through locked phones and hushed corners. No single confirmation ever went public. Instead, fragments surfaced like pieces of a puzzle left scattered on a table: a sighting out of place, a message that shouldn't have been sent, a dinner that should have been just colleagues but wasn't read that way by everyone watching. The rumor. Let's call it what it is, because without official words it can only be just that: hinted at a third figure on the periphery, someone who knew the rhythm of sets and scripts, someone who wouldn't look suspicious where cameras already lived. It was the kind of rumor that stings because it feels possible, because the industry is a maze of long nights, intense emotion, and shared vulnerabilities. If this thread were true, it would explain the sudden chill fans sensed, the days when their smiles didn't quite match their eyes, the interviews that sounded a touch too rehearsed. But here's what makes this story so riveting: the silence. Neither side rushed to explain. No notes were posted, no lines were drawn in public sand. The quiet wasn't just personal, it felt strategic, as if the truth, whatever it was, would be too costly to name. And cost matters when you sit near the very top. By the time the whispers grew legs, both were flying high, projects in motion, endorsements on the line, scripts waiting for signatures. When you've got calendar pages packed in a fanbase that hinges on the image they adore, the equation changes. You weigh the fallout. You consider the brands that prefer tidy narratives and the producers who don't want headlines overshadowing premieres. You hear the advice of teams who remind you that no comment can sometimes be the safest sentence in the world. And so the hush held, thick and immaculate, while fans tried to read between lines that were never written. Still, there are things silence can't hide. Those who followed closely noticed the subtle markers of a downturn. A day apart turning into weeks with no shared trace, captions that once sparkled with inside jokes growing strangely neutral, interviews where names were suddenly spoken more carefully. There were whispers of late-night arguments that didn't end cleanly, of distance that felt deliberate, of a split that seemed final even if no one ever said the word. The rumor mill began humming with certainty: it's over, it's done, there's no going back from a breach of trust like that. And yet, because this is the world of stars, where timing is a dance and perception is a weapon, time passed, and something unexpected happened. They appeared in the same places again. Not often, never sloppily, and always in a way that could be explained. But the coincidences came back with a sly smile. A quiet glance on a night when the city buzzed a little louder, a shadow captured in the background of a photo, and then the hesitant idea that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward that didn't rely on the past being spotless. The talk shifted. Was this reconciliation, or was it a mutual pact to keep the waters calm? When you've got projects that benefit from stability, when whole teams depend on not rocking the boat, showing unity, even a quiet, businesslike kind, can shield a lot of people from the storm. And that's the part many won't tell you, the orchestration. In an industry where images are managed down to the tilt of a chin, silence is only one instrument. There are also carefully placed stories, photo ops that say everything without saying anything, and interviews where the questions neatly avoid the minefield waiting beneath. People talk about agencies and producers and brands, and how they prefer winners who don't bleed on camera. It's not that someone walks into a room and orders everyone to pretend, it's that the machine hums best when the story is clean. And when the machine feeds jobs and livelihoods, you cooperate, because keeping the calm is sometimes the only way through. As for the figure at the edge of the triangle, no one with a microphone ever spoke her name decisively, and nothing official ever landed on the record. The rumor was enough to divide the audience into camps. Those who believed it with unshakable certainty and those who rejected it as the cruel invention of idle minds. Rivalries are fertile ground for speculation, and jealousy wears 1,000 faces in this business. Some said the clues were planted, nudged into the light to stir the pot at a critical moment. Others claimed that the overlap was real, that a friendly collaboration crossed lines on the wrong night, that intentions blurred where trust should have been crisp. But in a world that thrives on mystique, ambiguity is both a shield and a sword. Fans felt the weight of that ambiguity. They asked why the truth, or even a shared boundary, wasn't stated openly. Why not admit pain if there was pain? Why pretend perfection if the seams were showing? The answers, as always, depend on who you ask. Some say love deserves protection from public appetites. Others say privacy isn't the same as quiet manipulation. And there's a third truth, inconvenient but real. Sometimes the rumors aren't fully true, and sometimes the denial isn't fully honest, and the only thing that can survive the gap between them is time. In that space, two people either rebuild carefully, brick by brick, or they learn to nod politely and walk separate roads that still run parallel in public. What we can say is this: the arc felt unmistakable. A golden beginning kindled by on-screen magic. A deepening bond that made social media swoon. A storm of whispers about lines crossed and promises bruised. A collapse, sudden to the eye but slow to the heart. Then, tentative steps back into the same frame, where appearances were neat and the air was warmer than expected. Maybe it was forgiveness. Maybe it was strategy. Most likely, it was something in between. A mutual decision to protect what could still be protected, whether that was a friendship reborn, a collaboration salvaged, or simply the dignity of two people who once meant everything to each other and refused to let the world watch them break. And that, dear listeners of Whispers of Turkish Stars, is what keeps this tale so magnetic. Not the scandal alone, but the control around it. The way stories were managed, the way dangerous questions were avoided, the way a perfect image was stitched back together just well enough for the cameras to catch the right light. This isn't a condemnation. It's an observation of how the game is played when love meets fame and neither wants to fold. In the end, the truth belongs to Gökberk Demirci and Özge Yagaiz. What belongs to us is the curiosity, the empathy, and yes, the fascination with trying to find the outline of the real story beneath the careful choreography. So where are they now, really? Perhaps standing at a crossing, deciding with every new day whether the last chapter will stay closed or whether a fresh page can be trusted. Perhaps learning that reconciliation isn't a moment but a practice, one that takes time and honesty and a mutual promise not to repeat what hurt. Or perhaps they've chosen a softer goodbye than headlines can dramatize, one that respects what was beautiful without pretending it never burned. Whatever the case, the lesson echoes: in this industry, image is a currency, silence is a strategy, and love, when it enters the arena, has to fight harder than anyone ever sees. Tell us what you think. Do you believe the rumors? Do you think the silence was protection or performance? Would you have wanted a statement, or do you respect the choice to keep the doors closed? Drop your thoughts below and keep it thoughtful, because whatever you believe about the whispers, there were two real hearts at the center of them. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, share it with the friend who never misses a clue, and don't forget to subscribe to Whispers of Turkish Stars so you never miss the next twist. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and keep your ears tuned to the softest echoes, because in this world, that's where the truth usually starts.